Just before Christmas, a strange man in black appeared at my office with a shocking delivery. Myself and 19 others were being sued by guns for $6.5 million. They claimed we were in a conspiracy to destroy their company. We became known as the Guns 20.
I will now ask to come before us the Guns 20, as they are named in the Guns writ. Alexander Marr, Defendant, Heidi Douglas.
I'll never forget that day because my life was changing and I had no control over it anymore. And that feeling of stepping up there in front of the community and suddenly I was a player in this massive chess game, you know, between an almighty powerful corporation and really a bunch of community members who'd been standing up for their backyards.
The Guns 20 defendants were a disparate group. Campaigners, elected politicians, students, doctors, a writer, and a dentist. We all cared about the forests, but Guns claimed we were working together to deliberately undermine their business.
The way Guns had framed their case, there was a charge that there was this overall campaign against Guns and that everybody had conspired to harm their business. And the conspiracy consisted largely of the campaign to protect Tasmania's forests, so that anybody who was involved in that campaign was potentially a co-conspirator. They'd come together to form this plan, which we might have said was about saving the forest, but in the pleadings it became this plan to injure Guns' business. And that was a very scary precedent for free speech because it criminalised the practice of democracy.
If they could get away with this, they would build a new body of case law in Australia which would allow similar companies to go after any civil society action that got in their way.
Why do you think I personally was sued?
The case was fundamentally about silencing dissent and trying to weaken the campaign. What was one of the most powerful new campaign tools that needed to disappear? They were your films.
Only 4 days after we were sued, it became clear why Guns was out to silence us. The company announced plans to build a giant pulp mill in the Tamar Valley. This would double Guns' wood chip production. Guns claimed this was an industrial zone.
Doesn't look very industrial.
No, it doesn't look very industrial. And that's why we feel so insulted with all this. You just have to come here and see how beautiful it is to know that.
The mill was fiercely opposed by people who feared it would pollute the region beyond repair.
This was $1 billion plus company. His share price had gone up every year for the previous 4 years. So they just thought it was going to keep going up, and all they had to do was stomp on a few people, build the biggest pulp mill in Tasmania, and then lock the entire Tasmanian economy into making them rich.
Before I was sued, I'd been planning to buy my first home. My lawyers advised me that if I lost this court case, Guns could take everything I owned. But I refused to give up my dreams and went ahead and bought the flat anyway. It wasn't the joyful experience I imagined it would be. My house. My refuge was under siege. The threat became very real once the case began in the Supreme Court.
The whole thing was about building a conspiracy theory, and they needed as many connections between as many of the defendants as possible.
The conspiracy claim was ridiculous, especially as many of us had never even met before. But now, our fate was bound together.
The potential for 20 defendants to turn on each other in that environment was just huge. That was one of the big fears at the beginning. You know, you dump 20 people in a room and say, you're all liable for what everyone else has done. But, you know, everybody had their own individual struggles with the case.
I realised that I was a link that connected us. I'd filmed everyone in this room, and in doing so, had put us all at risk.
It was a clear issue for where you sat in the case that you were one of the links between the Wilderness Society and a number of the other defendants, where you'd been and filmed actions that weren't Wilderness Society actions, and some of it was before you were working for the Wilderness Society or when you were only part-time and you were going out filming things, because that's what you did.